You're listening to Soundrise Podcast, a show hosted by Alex in Serbia and Vlada in Poland.
Each week we cover a different artist or band and engage in open spontaneous debates and discussions about specific parts of their discographies. Our goal is to expand their musical horizons and cover a great range of genres and styles.
Find us on Patreon, patreon.com/soundrisepod, and on social media @soundrisepod.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Soundrise Podcast. Hello Alexander, how are you feeling today?
Hi Vlada, hello to all of our listeners around the world. I'm pretty good. I got some good news in my private life. Got a new job. Also, my football team is doing well in the Champions League. Got a new haircut, a new one. So everything is going pretty well. I just wish the pandemic would go away soon. So overall, I think I'm not doing too bad. How are you, Vlada?
I'm pretty good, just enjoying my well-earned weekend. Today we're going to talk about a very interesting act, a band that became pretty much indie darlings back in late noughties or early 2010s. A very interesting band, as I mentioned, with a very uh, distinctive vocalist. So, Alexander, this was your suggestion, so please tell us, who are we talking about today?
Yes, that's a good intro. Obviously, we're talking about Florence and the Machine, one of those major indie bands nowadays, and I have a couple of reasons why I chose this particular band for our show. So, this is a band that I often hear on the radio these days. I listen to an indie radio station, and Florence and the Machine are one of those bands that often get played there. They get airtime, so to say. And the other reason would be obviously the vocalist, Florence Welch. I always thought that, she really sounds powerful, very authentic, and I just thought, yeah, maybe we should do a rather modern artist and see what they have for us as music listeners. So let's share a bit of info on them. They were founded in 2007 in London, in England. Obviously, Florence Welch being one of the founding members. Then her friend Isabella Summers on keyboards, Rob Aykroyd on guitar, harpist Tom Munger, and many other collaborators. The name originated from Florence and the nickname of her friend Isabella. The nickname is Machine, and they had used to work together, musically before forming this band. So when they decided to form a band, they couldn't really find a proper name. They tried to combine some of their names and nicknames, and that's how we got Florence and the Machine.
Do you have any idea why she was called the Machine? Why people call her that way?
I'm not too sure. I haven't really, research on that. Have you heard? Are you familiar with Isabella Summers?
No, I know very little about individual band members, I have to say. For me, as much as I'm familiar with this band's music, I've never really been a huge fan, so I never really dug deeper. So I feel like this is a great opportunity for me to discover some of their stuff as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
But anyway, please continue telling us more about this wonderful act.
Yeah, no worries. I think I have now let's say, homework to do regarding Isabella's nickname. But anyways, this band was pretty much praised from their foundation, let's say, especially from the media, in particular BBC. They played a huge role in spreading the word about this band. They were really praised for their pop abilities, for their dramatic and eccentric kind of music. And that's what they did with their first album that we're going to discuss today. It's called Lungs, and what's interesting about that album is that it held the number 2 position for its first 5 weeks on the UK albums chart. And later on, the album would become one of the best-selling albums in the UK in the years 2009 and 2010. And obviously, this album paved the way for the subsequent records. Some of them also are going to be discussed on our show today. Obviously, people were really impressed with Florence as a vocalist, and with their style of music, because has these emotional lyrics. You get attached with it. You get very emotional. When you listen to this kind of music. The band itself is often described as an indie band, but it does have elements of soul music, of rock music, and so on. So they were also influenced by other genres and really experimental, which we will see with the records today. Overall, I think we should now proceed to covering the records. They have released 4 studio albums so far. As you guys know, we always discuss 3 records, so we're unfortunately going to skip one of them. We're now gonna start off with the debut record. It's called Lungs. This record was compared to the likes of Fiona Apple and Kate Bush, and it was released in 2009. So we're now gonna discuss it. It features some of their biggest singles. Vlada, I want to hear your thoughts first on the album Lungs.
All right, so thank you for this wonderful intro. I really enjoyed listening to you. What I want to say about Florence and the Machine is that I remember when they burst out on the scene, there was a huge hype about them. Maybe even too much hype for my taste. I remember that everyone was talking about them, especially within the indie rock community. And everybody would say that you just had to listen to them, that they were something new, a breath of fresh air. And I tried at the beginning back then, and somehow I didn't really grow to like them much. I thought they were very talented, but this music didn't sit well with me at the time. It's been a long time since then, so I can listen to it with a pair of fresh ears, sort of say, and I'm sure glad I did so. And this record, Lungs, for instance, is really a wonderful debut album. I think maybe some of that hype was not deserved, even though that's very subjective to talk about. But this is definitely a very competent, very accomplished piece of work. I think that overall, the band has a certain charisma, especially the leading vocalist, right, Florence Welch, that is undeniable. And that's what we get to hear on this record. And this is why this is a huge indie classic, and rightfully so. So you may argue that some of this hype was deserved after all, even though there was probably a lot of naysayers at the time and even nowadays. So I want to start off by saying that what's really fascinating when you start listening to this record are Florence's vocals. Right from the get go, it's something that strikes you as unique, as wonderful, as uh, in many ways one of a kind, a sort of a unicorn thing, you know. And rare are the singers with that kind of command of their voice, not just from the technical point of view, not just from the point of view of her range, but also the way she expresses emotions, the way she expresses attitude that's needed for certain tracks. And for example, Dog Days Are Over, she sounds very sensual, and she carefully builds up the intensity of the song. Now the chorus, it kind of struck me like a typical indie fare of the time. Very upbeat, very anthemic, and that, to be honest, was my biggest gripe with Florence and the Machine when I started listening to them a long time ago. But overall, it doesn't really bother me much because everything else is really great, especially her voice, and I just loved it from the get go. Uh, Alexander, what was your impression when you started listening to this record?
I think that the opening track really sets the tone for the record. Dog Days Are Over, one of those singles, also one of their most popular songs. Nowadays, you still hear it on the radio. It's a banger. It's a really good song. I like it. It has a powerful chorus, and I think that's one of the most positive things about this band, that uh, they they tend to make this powerful sort of anthemic choruses, and that's what also hooks you up. I mean, if that's your thing, then you will definitely like this record. Then moving on, you have Rabbit Heart, another good song, which is, I think, about becoming stronger and more self confident. this is mostly the thing with their music. Personal struggles, broken relationships, starting your life again after some sort of stress or trauma. Then you have this song, I'm Not Calling
Just
You a
a
Liar.
second, I want to interrupt you for a moment because you talked about Rabbit Heart, and I also felt the same way as you did about the song. And one thing I want to add, though, is how these songs they really capture the anguish and the struggle of the generation, that Florence is from, this kind of millennial struggle, let's call it. And this is why this music resonates so much with people, and it's really done so wonderfully. There's so many great elements to this tune. So you were saying something about the next tune?
Yeah, I'm Not Calling You a Liar, a love song, and then you have Owl. It's Owl is a rather upbeat song. What I want to say about the band and this record in particular, um, the songs sound sort of upbeat, but it also has this ballad elements, almost like these songs are sometimes they sound sometimes like ballads, which is a very interesting combination and probably why a lot of people can relate to this kind of music.
Yes,
Now there is also,
exactly
yeah,
my
go on.
observations as well. You have it spot on. And like this is so upbeat, but at the same time very melancholy, very, like you can really relate to it if you've felt the same way as the singer.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can also sense that from the lyrics. Now, what I want to say before I continue talking about individual tracks, there is also the other side of this argument. Let's say the negative side. So the songs tend to have this fantastic build-up. This excellent build-up where it fills you with energy and excitement. And what I found kind of disappointing is that when you're expecting that big moment, when you're expecting the song to reach a higher level, she just repeats the same lyrics from earlier in the song. And that's the thing with almost the whole record. I think that is some sort of, I don't want to be harsh, but that's maybe due to the maturity or immaturity of the record. I was just expecting, from those songs to really reach new heights. But I guess when you repeat the same lyrics, multiple times, that's the characteristic that's typical for upbeat songs. And as I said, some of these songs are not really upbeat, but you have this. You have this, let's say, flaws. Did you have maybe the same impression,
Uh,
or is it
that's an
subjective?
interesting observation. I think that their build up is great, as you mentioned. And sometimes, as I mentioned before, I have issues with some of these anthemic, bombastic choruses, but not always. And I think that you might be a bit harsh because it's not the repetition that irks me. It's more about the melody of those choruses that can be a bit off sometimes, but only sometimes. Sometimes these bombastic, dramatic choruses work really well, and I don't think that they're necessarily immature. I think this is, first of all, this is still pop music, even though it's some kind of weird indie twisted version of pop music. It's still pop music, so that's why there's an element of repetition. But lyrically, I think Florence and the Machine are very expressive. I really liked some of the lyrics. I could really enjoy just listening to some of her words alone, uh, outside the
Yeah,
melody and everything else. So I think that you are a bit harsh, even though there's a grain of truth to what you're saying. Sometimes these choruses can be a bit grating on your ears, but I think it also depends on your mood, and it really depends on the song.
possibly.
So,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, good point. I'm glad that it's subjective. I mean, we can still hear from our fans. If there is someone out there listening to this episode who is a massive Florence and Machine fan, please tell us, engage with us, and just say, whether I'm wrong or not. So, moving on, I want to touch on the experimental part of their music. So, the song Girl with One Eye, it has a bluesy feel. My opinion is that it's kind of bluesy. It has these creepy lyrics that I didn't quite understand. I'm not sure if it's about rape or pedophilia or something like that. They are kind of creepy. They're talking about some sort of violence, I think. Vlada, any thoughts on this?
Oof, I can't really recall the lyrics very well, but what I liked about this track is that kind of smoothness and jazzy feel to it. And, it's kind of, it builds up very slowly, and there's a very thunderous climax at the end of the song. And I thought that was great. Her falsetto was awesome in this song, so very well executed. About the lyrics, I kind of have to look them up now one more time.
Yeah,
Uh,
but we kind of agree that it feels kind of jazzy or even bluesy, right?
Yeah,
It's
of
sort of
course. Very,
different.
very. It does have that. I was thinking about people like Nina Simone and people like that while listening to this track. At the same
Good
time, it,
show.
it does sound a bit modern as well. It doesn't have that classic feel. So it's a nice fusion of different elements.
I think
Yeah,
that's the
there's.
case with a
It
lot of
might be. Yeah,
indie
this is
musicians.
definitely a
Yeah.
song about some kind of sexual harassment. Um, and I like the way that she writes about stuff. It's not always very clear, but she puts just enough hints there for you to imagine what the song might be about. So that
Yes, yes. She has a specific way of writing songs, and she also praised her colleagues, her band members, for understanding that approach. So there's a great chemistry going on in this band, and we can also say that Florence is one of the main songwriters here, along with her friend Isabella Machine Summers.
Yes. Okay. Let's take a look at some other tracks as well. For example, there's a track called Kiss with a Fist, which I also found very interesting and kind of deviating from the usual formula. Very punkish, energetic, these crunchy guitars, and yet her vocal delivery is impeccable here as well, but not because of her range so much, but rather her attitude. Great guitars, great drums. I like that foray into a punchier style, a bit more punkish. Just goes to show how much talent this outfit has. So very good, very cool. What did you think?
Yes, that's one of the singles as well. A cute song, as I wrote in my notes. Very good, very punchy, and there are some other tracks as well that we can single out. One track that I really like, that is definitely one of my highlights, is the song "My Boy Builds Coffins," which I found pretty
Very
sad. And
interesting. Yes, very
yeah,
interesting from the lyrical point of view. I'll just read some of the lyrics here. It says, "My boy builds coffins with hammers and nails. He doesn't build ships. He has no use for sails. He doesn't make tables, dressers, or chairs. He can't carve a whistle because he just doesn't care." And then she goes on and on. Uh, it's kind of course, it's very metaphorical. I think it could be interpreted in many ways that the person she's dating might have some issues with depression or negativity or some other issues, like mental health issues you can think of. Could be interpreted in a completely different way as well. It all depends on the listener. But yeah, a very interesting tune overall.
one of my highlights, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure,
and
definitely one of the highlights for me as well. So yes. Okay, what else do we have here, Alexander?
yeah, we have the song "Blinding," which I found quite tense and also one of the highlights. The song between my boy Bill Scoffins and Blinding is called "Hurricane Drunk," and I have to say that this was a kind of disappointing track. I think it was pretty average, lyrically speaking. It sounded too cheesy to me. I think the record. I don't think the record actually benefited from this track, to be honest,
Yeah, I
especially
don't know. I
because
thought if I
it
remember
was
it
put in the
well.
middle of two fantastic
Yeah,
tracks.
it's not so memorable because it's kind of sandwiched between really good tracks, so I don't remember it so well too. I enjoyed it. I just don't remember it being one of the better tunes here.
Yeah, Absolutely. And finally, I want to touch on the last track, the single, and probably one of the best tracks ever done by Florence and the Machine. It's called "You've Got the Love." It's such a it's a true indie anthem, Vlada, don't you think?
You have a very good closing song here. Uh, I thought that this was a perfect way to end the record, but kind of commercial, maybe commercial sounding compared to other songs. Not that that's necessarily bad. Still very bombastic, dramatic, everything that's quite particular to this band. You know, this very distinctive sound that they have, and so it's instantly recognizable as their tune, I would say. So yes, a nice way to end the record. It has that kind of atmosphere of finality, so it perfectly recaptures everything that this band is about, especially on this debut record.
It ends the album on a high note for sure.
Yes.
But I have to say one thing. I have to throw something here. This is not a Florence and the Machine song. This is actually a cover. And when I found out, I was kind of let down, I have to say. So, You've Got to Love is actually a song written by a team of songwriters called The Source from 1980. And it was originally performed by, I think the singer was Sandy Staden. I actually listened to the song.
Oh
It's
wow,
it's,
you
it's
caught
pretty
me off
good.
guard. Usually I'm the one who recognizes all the covers, and now you caught me
Yeah,
off guard here. I have to apologize to dear listeners for the lack of expertise on this one.
yeah. Let me just check. I'm not sure if it's 1980. It's 1986. Sorry. So yeah. So Florence and the Machine actually became famous by doing a cover song. We know that that's not rare in the music world,
Not
but I have to
bad
say that
though,
I was a
because they still infuse this with their own sound. As I said, it has all these musical elements that are instantly recognizable as the Florence and the Machine. So I think it's
yeah.
it's it's a good track to close the record. Maybe not one of the best tracks here, in my opinion. There are other better tracks, more lyrically interesting.